All right, when you're talking about question 24, guys, the same thing that you need to do with this is to take your hint from number of marks and the discuss thing, okay? And it says to discuss the factors. Now, some things what they'll do for you in exams, particularly HSCs, they might say discuss 4 factors, or discuss 3 factors, or discuss 1 factor, okay? But in this particular thing, they haven't given you a guideline as to how many factors. Now, the way they would generally mark that then is that they'd look at the mark and they'd be looking just for not a naming of something. If you name something, say you named 5 things, you probably get 2 or 3 marks just for naming them. Probably 2 because it's a low level. And so what they're looking for is the naming of 5 factors, and then they'll ask you to put a sentence for each of them. And that's essentially what I was doing when looking through it. So what sort of factors would you talk about? You talk about things like the size of the current. You know, the higher the current, the more likely it is that you're going to have damage. You might talk about the length of contact. So long contact with it, higher chance of injury, shorter contact, less where it contacts the skin. The weather, so whether or not you are sweaty or not. Whether the type of clothing you're wearing, and shoes, whether or not you have some insulation or not, whether or not the wires are insulated or not, you know, at all, in any way. Voltage, because high voltage, low current shock can still kill, but it would have to be very high voltage to have an effect.
Very different voltage, though.
Yeah, it does, and that.
You still take that into account, though?
Yeah, I can mention that. Because you'd say 240 volt.
Kind of like a given in the case.
But typically the 240 AC is going to do you some damage at the current it delivers at, right? Because the Australian standard is 5 amps. So you really don't want to be in contact with a 5 amp 240 volt. And you could mention, of course, is that the yeah. Anyway, you could mention the fact that the Australian particular cycle at 50 hertz, because the number of hertz is important. Okay, and 50 hertz is one of the world's worst deliveries, power deliveries for the human body, because it's pretty close to the sort of average adult heart rate, around about 60, and so it's highly likely to interfere with your heart. The closer it is, the worse it is for you. Yeah. So 50 hertz is a bad frequency delivery. But just a good shock will do it.
Right.
240 volt, 5 amps, 50 hertz, that will shut it down all right. Oh, you get burnt. Yeah, you get burns from if you keep holding. And don't forget, if you get contact, it also depends where the current enters the body. You know, if it comes in one arm and out the other, it's going across the heart muscle, that's right. Whereas if you're standing like this, and it goes in the arm and down through your foot, you're less likely to pass through the heart, so it's less likely to be injurious to you, things like that, okay? So you just need to get, the hint here that you need to get on top of is you need to look at the number of marks when you have a question. You need to look at the fact of what it's asking you to do, and as I said, it was a discuss. You know, if it was 5 marks and it was an assess, you'd be doing something completely different. You wouldn't be looking at 5 factors necessarily. You might be looking at 1, describing what it is, explaining how it works, looking at its consequences, and then making your assessment. But because this is just discuss means talk about the main features of, all right? And that is not a 5-mark verb, so it means they're looking for 4 or 5 things to get the full marks. Okay, make sense? Yep. Okay, let's see if I move that. No, can't. Move that though. All right, next one. All right. First thing, this next one. Let's look at the verb again, because the verb is really, really important. Notice that. So you've got outline 2. 3 marks involved. Okay. Now, To get 3 marks, you're going to be looking at to get 3 pointers, right? That's what they do. When they get 3 marks, they're looking for 3 things to give you marks for. So they've talked about 2 aspects of his model.
Yeah, I don't know person.
Now, yes, so the first thing you've got to do is you've got to say what Ptolemy's model is. And the first thing you're going to mention is that it's a geocentric model.
Yeah, sorry, was he the original one?
No, he wasn't the original geocentric model. But if you wrote down with the support of the heliocentric model, then you just shot yourself in the foot and you can't get marks, basically. Right? Really, really important that you know the basic fact. Second thing, once you've known that he's supported the heliocentric model, you need to provide reasons for its wide acceptance. Not his ideas, but the wide acceptance of a model that's geocentric. Yep. It's geocentric. He's the one with the episode. Yeah, Earth in the middle.
Why was it widely accepted?
Why? Okay, I've talked about it before. If you're standing on the Earth and you're looking around, the Earth doesn't seem to be moving. When you drop an apple, it falls at your feet. And if you look in the sky, exactly, religious reasons, perfectly valid answer. At the end, yeah. I mean, but you can't just say people believe in God. You have to give a reason around it. That's right, and they had a powerful influence on people. So that's the sort of thing that you're going to be needing to talk about. I don't know why they did that. Anyway. So, which question did we just do?
We just did 20. No, we did 25. 26 is,
I can't. 26.
Yeah, oh yeah, we're up to 26.
All right, again. I'm trying to get that over so we can see. Unfortunately.
What did you get that?
Right, so we're 25. I got 2 as well. That's why I want to.
All right. Now, one thing we have to be careful of here, and people fall into this trap quite a bit with it. First thing is that little bit there. Really?
Based on your research, I was like, yeah,
Based on our
Yeah.
construction of a large hadron flyer.
Oh,
Well, that stuff there, guys, those first words, based on your research, they may as well not put them in. It's just there to take up space. Someone thought they were being smart when they wrote the question by going back to the syllabus where it says, using secondary resources, blah, 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 students.
I read it as based on research.
The next thing that you go to notice is you've got a verb, outline, and it's describing the probable origins of the universe and the main evidence, right? So you've got to, it's actually asking you to do 2 things. Outline. Marnie, what sort of level do you need to do for an outline?
Not very well.
Not very, exactly. Outline is 1 step below describe. And you guys at the back, you really need to know all the 26 or 28 verbs they use for the HSC. Now, I've said before, theoretically, all those verbs are used in every subject, and they're supposed to be identical. But science uses them properly, and other subjects in the humanities tend to make them a bit fuzzy. So, stick to my... When you're doing science...
Context.
Yeah, unfortunately... Okay, so you've got 2 jobs here. And you've also got a problem with this question. Because I've actually got a second verb in there.
They said just
So you're outlining a description according to the question, and that's fine. So we're just going for the lower level there. Yeah,
why are you wearing a mic if you're not recording your voice?
I am recording it.
The screen recording too. Really?
Yeah,
Okay, never mind.
yeah. I don't need Audacity. Although I can use Audacity to make MP3 files, but unfortunately they're bigger than the video file, which I don't understand.
Yep.
Okay, so first thing is you're going to, guys, first thing you're going to do is you're going to name a theory.
How many people do
Everyone?
this? So you
Now-
can run steady state.
If you want to run steady state, that's fine. I don't have a problem with that. You just got to provide evidence for it.
I did both.
Okay. Then once you've stated which theory you're going to talk about or theories, that's probably you need to say, you know, a widely accepted theory is, make a sentence out of it. What a lot of people have done in their questions though is they've put a lot of material in there which is not answering anything. What they've done is put an awful lot of material which is restating the question. Now apparently in English they like you to spend half a page writing down what they're asking you. In science, they just want you to answer stuff. We don't want all this sort of extra fuzzy stuff around the outside that looks good. We just want an answer. So to write down stuff like, during our class, we did lots of research on origins of the universe, and after a lot of consideration and discussion, we found out that the most probable one is the Big Bang Theory, and everyone likes the Big Bang Theory. Well, you know, don't put all that stuff in, and it's not necessary. So you've covered the fact that you've named a probable origin. Next thing you're going to do is you're going to need to name three things. Now, if you just put down this. Right. If I do that, that's not going to get you very far.
You have to explain redshift.
Vertical velocities.
Hubble and redshift. No, not going to get you further. There's two things you could do. You need to explain expansion. And you need to also talk about, you could also talk about in the same thing, tracing back to a possible origin. So you can use the same thing, an outline that it shows there's an expansion going on which suggests that there might have been an energetic beginning. And then if you trace it backwards, you come down to a region which looks like a centrality. And you can pick any set of evidence you want. As long as you name it and talk about it a bit, you're going to gather marks. Yeah.
All you need to get for.
No. That's 1, 2, 3. You'd need another thing.
What is that?
Oh, cosmic background radiation would be one of them. You could talk about uneven distribution of matter throughout the universe. You can talk about the things like the distribution of antimatter to matter throughout the universe. You can talk about the equalizer, anything like that, any evidence at all that you find in a textbook that talks about it. You just got to find something and make the link, right? So you've got to name it and make the link back to the Big Bang. Okay. Now, one of the things that you have to be careful of is if you use 4 bits of evidence that all point back to everything being in the same spot at the same time, all you've done is you've outlined reasons for one thing. Okay, you actually need 4 bits of evidence which are different to get the 4 marks on it. So that's what you need to think about there. Let's look at page 8. There's got to be something over there.
I'm really confused with that question.
Okay.
Diagram of this. I didn't know if you had to draw 2 lines.
Well, you've got to do what it asks to do. So you need to read it. Draw 2 future cycles. So that's a cycle there. It's up there now. So that's about halfway. It goes down there, and it's going to go up there somewhere. It's going to go down. And as long as you have something that looks something like that, now,
Don't do one mark.
are they going to worry if you did it like this, down there and up there?
Oh, yeah, no.
As far as they're concerned, as long as you've got something. But they are looking at the fact it goes up and down a bit, so the next one probably is up. But as long as you had something that was about the right size in the right place, you're going to get a mark for it. Right. Outline the nature of a sunspot. It's 1 mark, it's outline. And you've got to keep track of these things. Outline. You're not going to have to say an awful lot about it. One thing will do you.
Is this the one mark?
dynamic nature wrapping around.
Well, something like an area of intense surface magnetism causing an eruption at the surface of the sun. That's one. An area in the sun where you get a thermal upwelling which causes a flare. Anything to do with it. If you mention the fact, basically, if you mention a fact that's true, you're going to get a mark. If you mention a fact that's not true, it's not a fact, so you won't get a mark. You know, you might be pushing the limit, and if you went to the HSC and they had this question, and there was a similar question to the HSC, and you wrote, sunspots is where the sun passes wind. You may not get the mark for that. Well, actually passes solar wind was the answer. It might be dubious.
Well, there was a question in my geography exam about the Exxon Valdez oil spill in Alaska.
Yep.
And basically what happened is a bloke running an oil tanker ran into a sandbar. And the question was, outline how an idea of geography may have helped to clean up the Exxon Valdez. And one of my reasons was maybe if the driver of the boat knew where the sandbank was, he wouldn't have crashed.
Yeah, that's right. As long as you're answering what the question asked. I had a great one. They used to do communication in one course. You guys at the back would like this one. There's a question in communication that is in two parts. One. Thank you. Number one, the question was, describe a common piece of sign language people use to communicate a feeling. And the person said the raising of the middle finger is a very common sign. And then it said, describe what this indicates. And the person wrote down, he wrote, this gesture is used when there is extreme displeasure. It generally means, I'm unhappy with you, or please sit on this and rotate very quickly. Full marks. What can you do? I mean, he's right. So as long as you answer the question, you're okay. Okay. Be very careful though. They are getting a little bit fussy about something called non-serious attempts. And if they think that you're just being a comedian, you're just trying to be silly, they will actually null your whole paper for it. Yeah. Right. Explain. This is a really, really important word in science. English, they don't seem to have any real meaning to it, but here we're very particular. It's worth 2 marks. Now, explain means cause and effect. Get that in your heads. So if you see the word explain in a question, you need to talk about something happens and makes this happen. Now you need to identify what it is that they want you to talk about. Increased solar activity. And they want to talk about the effect on the Earth. So 2 things you need to describe. Most people did that reasonably well. So you might say, increased solar activity, increased solar wind hitting the ionosphere, which may cause the northern lights or the aurora borealis or whatever it is. Increased solar activity causes a stream of highly charged particles which can interfere with the electronics on satellites. Yeah, that was a good one. Absolutely great one. The increase in radiation from the sun can kill astronauts. That would be perfect acceptable. That sentence would give you one of those marks. Okay? Yeah. But that was one thing with one cause. Yeah. Oh, you mentioned 2 things. Yeah, that's all right. Maybe I was being generous. Maybe I should. This is the skill of interpreting your questions, guys. Looking at the verb, looking at what it's exactly asking you to do, and looking at your marks, and then deciphering that to work out how to answer it. And that's a really, really important skill for you guys. That's strange. I know why that happened. Right. 28. I'll tell you one thing this did show me. Or the work I did on radiation, I probably needed to go in a little bit more detail for you guys, really. Let's have a look. So, obviously you're going to be talking about alpha particles and you're going to be talking about beta particles. So it's going to require you to know what they are. Explain the difference. And you're talking about two things. You're going to be talking about the penetration and ionising ability. You've got 4 marks. So if you look at this quite simply, 1 mark will be about the penetrating ability of your alpha particles. 1 mark will be about their ionising ability. 1 mark will be the beta for that, and 1 will be beta for ionising. Yeah.
What is ionizing ability, just quickly?
The ability to knock electrons off an atom.
So, I didn't know. Like, did you want us to say what they actually were, or just?
Well, if you do actually say what they are, you get it wrong. You're going to penalise yourself. Like, you're not going to get marks. So if you describe the beta particle as a hydrogen nucleus, sorry, helium nucleus, you've got them the wrong way around, and they're going to go, this person's confused, no marks.
As far as I'm concerned, I explained the difference in penetrating ionising ability. I just didn't explain what the thing was. I only got half marks for it.
Okay. The answer, as I've said very often, is often in the depth of detail they give. You can be perfectly right and still not right enough to get the marks at the level they expect you to. Okay. Now, with this, because when you're explaining the difference in penetration, first thing you've got to talk about, of course, is the nature of the particle and why it's doing what it's doing. So, the first thing is that the alpha particle is a 2 protons and 2 neutrons, so it looks like a helium nucleus. It's not actually from a helium, it's not a helium nucleus, but it looks like one. It is large, it is massive, and it is slow moving. Right? It is. In atomic terms, it's massive. So, in terms of penetrating power, because it is large, massive, and slow moving, moving through air and paper, it has a large number of collisions with atoms, and the large number of collisions will cause a large slowing of the object so it doesn't penetrate very far.
Particle just stop mid-air, or it just somehow dissipate?
No, it is stopped, and then it has other interactions that go on.
Okay.
Okay.
Like if a gamma ray stops, it's not just like a gamma ray.
Gamma rays are...
Particle.
No, the gamma ray is very different from the alpha and beta particle. Because gamma rays are made of photons, photons don't exist when they stop. So if you stop a gamma radiation, it means the energy's been absorbed and dissipated in other ways. Okay? Whereas protons and neutrons are real things, kind of.
So lead wouldn't become radioactive after absorbing gamma rays?
It will undergo changes. It'll actually be altered in its properties. So if you bombard them with enough gamma rays, you'll actually change the lead to something else. Okay. So the ionising capability of the alpha particle is because it is a large particle and it is also positively charged, and so interacts strongly with electrons to cause ionisation. Beta particles, they are small, highly energetic, and they are fast moving. So they suffer from fewer collisions, and it takes generally collision with a nucleus to deflect them or stop them.
So I've said that helium nucleus is turned into helium atoms. Well, why can't they? Because if the electrons get sucked into the orbital, well, not sucked into. I've read that a bit that they turn into helium atoms.
Okay. I don't think I marked you wrong on that, do I?
No, you didn't.
No. I'm just wondering if that's... I haven't read that as a typical reaction. They tend to do other things, that's all.
Would you be able to just, could we just go through saying the multiple choice ones just to see if we can count up on them? You know how we did last time?
Just go through the ABCDs. Yeah, I can do that. Let's finish what we're doing here quickly.
28 was the last question, sir.
That's 28.
Yeah.
That is the last question on the paper. Yep, end of test. All right. Were there any other questions people particularly wanted me to look at and think about with them? 25. Why? What's wrong with 25?
No, I just wondering because there was a 3 mark one.
Oh, yeah, you want to get an extra mark for it. All right. Multiple choice. I'll just go through answers. You can check that I've marked it appropriately.
Oh, we didn't get we didn't do 16, but that was the only one out of all.
16.
Really? No, we didn't.
Seven fine, 16, 7, 15, 16. Oh, I did do that. I have done it.
Oh, no. What? No, there's 2 16s. Oh, no, that is 16. Yeah.
All right, very, very quickly. People will have seen this. But I'll go through it again for the sake of doing it. All right. Yep. Just give me 1 second. I'll be right with you. Okay, I'll get back to this. So, Brad, we have looked at this, but I'll do it quickly with you. There's a trick to reading this and understanding this thing. The first one is you have to look at the graph and understand what it's telling you, right? And the first thing you do to understand that is you need to have a look and see that it's a velocity time graph, okay? When you go to the question, it asks you, using point P as a starting point, draw a labelled vector diagram to scale to show the part taken by object. Include the displacement. Now, when you're looking at this thing, what they're asking you to do is a vector diagram for the displacement of the object through its journey.
Yeah, because it doesn't,
Now,
looking at that graph, that object slows down and then all of a sudden speeds up.
No. It doesn't slow down, speed up. It's very consistent.
But it's
What you've got to look at.
velocity time.
Yes, it is velocity time. So what that is telling you is, remember, this thing has an acceleration on it, doesn't it? It's in the direction of north. So what it's doing is it's travelling initially northwards.
Yeah.
And it's slowing down to a stop, and then it turns around, goes back the other way.
Yeah.
Okay? And what you've got to do
Hang on a minute.
is you've got to work out how far it was when it started the journey. So it's at 6 there, and it finishes at 12. Now, remember, velocity is distance on time.
Yeah, I think I see where we're at.
So distance there is VT, which means that you take that times that, but because it's a triangle, you take that area, sorry, that area there, got the wrong one. The area on that line is the distance it's travelled in that time, right?
Why is it half? It doesn't say it was half it says...
Because, Tom, that says the velocity times the time is the displacement, right? Right. So if I was travelling at a constant velocity, this is easy. If I was travelling at 5 metres per second, in the first second I would have gone 5 metres, in the second I would have gone 10, and the third I would have gone 15, and the fourth. Right. So if it stayed at 6 metres per second, it would have gone 6, 12, right? But after it doesn't do that, it's slowing down.
So
now, we know that if that was a straight line graph, the area under that graph like that would be VT. But it's still true, the area under any graph, under this graph, any VT graph, is the displacement. Now, because that's a triangle, it starts there and it ends down there. And so there's your zero line. Now, the formula for an area under a triangle, yeah. Now you can see this because if it was a whole square, that would be 1/2, that would be the other. Yeah. And so what I need to do is I need to use that formula, 1/2 times 6 times 12, which means it's 36 metres it travelled in that first little bit. And then for the second half of the journey, It's from there to there. So that is a total of 16. 12 to 28 seconds is 16 seconds. And it was a total of -8, so it's going to be 1/2 times 16 times, what did I say it was, -8. And that's going to be 8/8 is 64. So when you come to do the your vector diagram, which is on this page, starting at P, it's going north.
It starts like it just happens to start at 6 meters per second, slows down, stops,
Yep.
turns around, goes in the opposite direction.
Yep. So what you need to do is you're going to need to make something that's 36 that way, and then what you need to do is you need to draw the other arrow back the other direction, and as the to scale. And then if you wanted to, you don't have to in this case, you can put a resultant in if you really want to.
Alright, let's take quickly before Bell goes to multiple.
Multiple choice are as follows.
Well, it's sort of scale.
Sort of. Did you label it? Did you put the scale on it? No. You have to do something to show me what you intend to do there. Okay, multiple choice on my answer sheet went D, A, B, C, B, C, D, 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 A, B, D, C, D. Okay.